Hey, welcome everyone to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today we have a young lady that's going to be on our show that is an author, a marathon runner, a champion, a world champion, lots of world champion records, an Olympian, won some medals. She's a mom, she's a wife, and she is a very engaging personality. So I want everybody to welcome Deena Kastor to Pro Mindset.
Thank you, Craig. I am so happy to be here today. I've been long awaiting getting together to have a chat with you. So thanks for having me on.
Okay, so we spoke just for a second off before we got started. It seems like running is just like in your blood. You've run your whole life. You're doing masters races. So I guess my question would be, how do you sustain the willpower to continue to do this, many years later, like 2 decades later? How do you do that?
Yeah, I started running at the age of 11. My mom got me involved in track and field locally in Southern California for my self-esteem because I was quiet and shy. And that first day of being let loose into the Santa Monica Mountains, I was like just in awe of my surroundings. And that's what I need to just keep re-engaging with the sport. If I start to feel like I'm plateauing physically or emotionally, I just find somewhere new to explore and just fill that cup right back up. So I think I'm pretty much running has taught me to be joy forward, right? To just reconnect with the reasons why I love the movement and fresh air and exploration. Really just love this sport. And so a priority all the time is health and wellness. It's not just running, because if your goal is just run, you can get in a cycle of injuries. So I really emphasize just as much recovery and rest so that I can stay at this for a long time.
That's awesome. So how is like how you just described it seem very attractive, very like, like, hey, I'd like to run. But when I'm running, I'm not having the same experience. I'm looking like 10 feet in front of me, make sure there's no snakes or anything in the way. I'm not really getting to enjoy the view because God did not make my body to like want to run long distances. How do you really get to enjoy the race? During the race, do you get to enjoy the surroundings in real time?
Yeah, I say yes, but I also like, as much as I love the crowds or enjoy the scenery I'm passing by here in the mountains of Central California, I also feel the suffering, right? I feel the pain and the fatigue, even the doubt in a lot of instances. And so I think it's a combination of like taking in your surroundings, but also being very internal, being strategic on what moment needs what focus, right? Like we can be internal and try to find our why and our purpose. But if we're being curmudgeons and really down mentally, kind of keep shifting to the negative, then if we can't shift that into a positive perspective, kind of churn those thoughts out in a better way to serve us, then just distract yourself with the scenery. So I think it's figuring out what the moment needs so that you can keep doing what you love, even when you're questioning your passion of it in the moment.
Okay. So as an Olympian and an Olympic medalist, which is, highest level, share with everybody when you won your medals, where you competed, and what they meant. I'm going to give you 4 things, what it meant to you then.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to you today?
Great questions. Unpacked. Let me unpack that. My first Olympics was in 2000 in Sydney, Australia, and it was just awesome to represent Team USA. But I went into the Olympics 10,000 meters, a little banged up, a lot of racing on the European track circuit in spikes, had my Achilles kind of flared up and angry with me. So I didn't perform well in the 10,000 meters. And I remember walking off the track even before I got those spikes off my feet saying, my next Olympic experience in 4 years' time is going to be much different. I want to earn a medal for my country. I don't want to just participate. And so that was my mission. I moved from Alamosa, Colorado to Mammoth Lakes, California with my coach and some of the best athletes, distance runners in the country to work together to just kind of draw the best out of each other. And it was 4 years of really focused work, not just on the little races in between, but on that bigger picture of earning a medal. And I was having every year just running personal best, and my body was taking on a heavier training load. And I really felt grateful for that momentum going in the 2004 Olympics in Athens, Greece. And I was able to, and a lot of meticulous things like heat training. I knew it was going to be hot in Athens. So I was wearing a lot of clothing while I was running, like long sleeves and tights in the middle of summer training. I was bringing one workout a week up to 9,000 feet altitude instead of 7,000 feet in town. And so really just trying to tweak things to get a little more performance edge, hydrating and trying to condense my fluids to be greater calories in the same amount of fluid intake. And so it was those little micro decisions along with the training that really added up into a performance that led me to the bronze medal in the marathon at the 2004 Olympics. At the time, it was my goal to earn a medal and I felt pride. But as the Japanese national anthem was playing on the podium for Mizuki Noguchi of Japan, Thundereba of Kenya was silver medalist. I remember feeling that awkward combination of being really proud of seeing that American flag being raised, but wishing it was the American national anthem. And so how two competing emotions can sit within you became kind of like that next unpacking of my career. Like, how could I use this pride as a pat on the back, but also this discontent as motive to move forward? And so for the next 4 years, I was playing with those emotions. And it led me to the Beijing Olympics in 2008, where I really thought I was in contention to earn gold that day. And at mile 3 of a 26.2 mile race, that is the marathon, my third metatarsal in my foot snapped in half without any warning. I broke my foot and just fell to the ground and watched the best runners in the world pass me by with that same goal of chasing gold. And I remember feeling so crushed and just sobbing on that bus, that's the SAG wagon that was bringing me to the Bird's Nest Arena, not the way I had envisioned entering that beautiful stadium. And I remember even in the length of that drive, that I cleared my eyes and just said, you know what? This happened at a big time. So it's going to have a big learning lesson. I don't just think we push our limits and sometimes we go overboard. I really believe that our bodies are capable of a lot of hard work as long as we are in balance. So I wanted to find out why my body was out of balance. And so a new goal popped up even before I entered that stadium. And I remember my husband and agent being on the other side of the glass and they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I said, "I'm fine." And then I hobbled to the front door. They met me to the door of the bus, and my husband looked at my foot that had ballooned up bigger than fatter than that football behind you. And he said, "You are clearly not fine." And I just pointed to my head like, "No, I'm fine. Like, I'm going to figure out why this happens. We're going to figure it out and I'm going to come back stronger as soon as I get answers." And I remember him being shocked at how I turned that around. I remember my mother kept calling me like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I kept saying, "I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just got to get stronger. I got to get healthier." And so I just think sport gives us an opportunity to constantly learn about ourselves and to improve on who we are, not just the metrics that our watch is telling us or how fast we're running, how many miles we're logging, but really who we are. And I feel like sport is such a gift if we can really take those lessons, that it's not really about winning or losing, but it's more about your becoming. And so what a great gift that the sport has given us. We look at Olympic cycles every 4 years, but there's a lot of miles that go on in between and a lot of lessons learned. But the Olympics have been a really great gift. And I feel like I've run the gamut on Olympic experiences, from just being happy to be there to earning a medal to falling short of even getting to that finish line.
Just out of curiosity, what happened in 12?
In 2012, I was going for my 4th Olympic team, but I was a few months out from childbirth. And so I remember trying to get ready for the Olympics, and I'm going to practice, but instead of sitting there with my teammates and stretching and bickering with them and storytelling, I just bolted home so that I could feed Piper and spent the rest of the day with her, and even being able to squeeze in naps, but then jumping on the treadmill instead of going out and meeting my teammates for a second run, jumping on the treadmill and having a crying baby sitting next to me and like jumping off and trying to give her something to pacify her and jumping back on the treadmill again. And I remember I was sixth place at those Olympic trials, and I remember only the top three make it to the Olympic team. And I remember my first thought feeling like I failed as a mom and as an athlete, and that I really just needed to figure this out. And it was such a hard moment emotionally. And I just looked out to the greater running community. There's plenty of people who have successful jobs and a passion for running and raise their families. And for me, shouldn't it be easier because my profession is running? So I can just kind of combine those two. And I needed to figure out how to balance it, and was really stuck on percentages. Like, can I no longer do this 100%? And I finally, on this road trip up the coast, we were in a camper, my husband, daughter, and our Italian Mastiff, camping up the California coast. And we were in our RV. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I need to train 100% when I'm in my running shoes. And when I get home, I'm going to be 100% mom and wife. And when I'm on the speaking circuit, I'm going to be 100% a motivational speaker. And I just said, like, whatever hat I'm wearing in that moment, I am going to give it everything I've got. And that includes my own self-care, right? Like, I'm going to need to be self-nurturing at times. I'm going to need to still prioritize rest and recovery. And so that's how I dealt with it. I was going to be 100% with whatever I was doing. And it really allowed me to say no gracefully a lot of the time, right? To say no to things that just didn't fit into being able to be 100%. And it worked, and I could graciously say no and still say yes. So to this day, when my calendar, my very obnoxious paper calendar that I have right here by my side all the time, when that gets overwhelming, I look at it and say, what do I need to cut out? And usually the answer is absolutely nothing. My calendar is filled with things that I love to do. I love to connect to the greater community. I love to travel and train and give corporate speeches. I love to go to the races and connect with the runners one-on-one, or drape medals around somebody's neck because this was their story and their pride of accomplishments. My schedule is full of things that I absolutely love to do, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's a reminder, a mindset reminder, where you're overwhelmed and feeling kind of anxiety over the scope of your day. And then you look and say, wow, I'm actually packed with some pretty awesome things.
Okay. I'm going to go back to your Olympic journey. I was at the Sydney Olympics.
They were incredible, weren't they?
It was amazing. Sydney was awesome. Doing the bridge, it was scary as heck. I did some things on the side. In addition,
you climbed the Harbor Bridge. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a really good time. My wife worked for the Olympics for a handful of years, and so I've been to my fair share of Olympics. So here's what I heard you say. Okay. You were the very typical normal athlete that had the dream of being an Olympian, and you made the Olympics. Okay. You made your first Olympics, and you didn't medal, but you wanted to medal. That gave you more fuel on the fire for 20. And, you were the best in our country. You were the third best in the world on that day. Yet you looked at the 1% that you didn't accomplish, which was being, like 2 spots over on the podium. Okay. And that's what you used as your fuel then. And then you get to Beijing and you have an unfortunate situation, broke your foot, broke a bone in your foot, and everybody thinks you're going to be devastated. And everybody's like, oh my God, and you turned lemons into lemonade by saying, okay, this is, there's purpose in this. There's a lesson here. This can be, you might even learn more there than anywhere else. Okay. Because it's like, you can only control so many things. Your metatarsal fracturing is not something you can control. And then the fourth one is you decided to have a family. And now you got this conflict of balancing family, your daughter, making the fourth Olympics, not being able to do what you used to do. And really reframing it so that in some ways being sixth at the Olympic trial was maybe even more impressive than being second and getting a bronze, or I'm sorry, third and getting a bronze medal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of all the obstacles, and you're older and you had different priorities and you had to have, different training, all that stuff. And so, what that describes for me in your career, it mirrors what a lot of us are facing in the real life. It's like, hey, we had this dream. We chased the dream. Then we find out, well, maybe it wasn't the dream. That really wasn't the dream. And maybe, all those kind of things. What's your response to my just the 16 years? It's probably more than 16, but the 4 Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reframing is probably one of the greatest tools for resiliency, which I consider one of the greatest character traits that we can have. Aside from gratitude, Cicero said, gratitude isn't only the greatest virtue, but the parent of all others. And I really find that to be true, that when you're grateful, it really unlocks other great virtues to lean into. But as a professional athlete, I could be introduced as an Olympic medalist, the only American in history to own American records from the 5K distance all the way up to the marathon simultaneously, world medals, New York Times bestselling book. How many drafts of that book did I write before it became a New York Times bestseller? A lot. It was a lot. It was 3 years of revising and revising and revising. And so I think it's really nice to have a great brag sheet, but my list of failures is far greater than that. It goes on for pages. And you could put all of my great accomplishments on an index card, but pages and pages and pages of falling short of what I was actually trying to accomplish. But I think what separates someone from being successful or not is that they aren't defined by the challenges. They define themselves in spite of those challenges. And so it's really, for me, has never been, although my goal may be a world record, an American record, or a medal, the reason I do this is to just chase excellence, right? Just to chase a better side, chase a better story, and really define my character in a way that makes me show up fully in every avenue of my life, not just my running shoes. And I think sport gives us such a good opportunity. Every sport is a way to really shape and mold who we are, because we don't want to add challenge to our everyday life to get better at dealing with challenge. But sports gives us a way to get tired, to get doubtful, to get cynical in a safer environment. And then how we define ourselves in those moments becomes who we are and the person who shows up in life crises or joys. And so I think sport is so important to be able to push ourselves a little bit and experiment with what works. But reframing has always been almost like a chemical hack over your body, right? When you can just find a thought that really makes things click into place, makes your cells vibrate on a higher level and allow you to perform at a higher level.
Absolutely. So share with us the title of your book and what are the key themes in your book.
Yeah. So my book is Let Your Mind Run, a memoir on thinking my way to victory. Although it's a memoir, it's why I was reluctant to write it, because I didn't really care if people learned more about me and what I've accomplished. I really wanted readers to discover how much control they have over their thought process and the outcome of events because of their thought process. And if we have roughly around 75,000 thoughts that go through our head every day, if we could just pay attention to a few of them and take the higher ground and kind of, our bodies feel our emotions on a cellular level. So if we can make sure that those emotions are defined in a way that makes us perform better, analyze better, be more effective or efficient. I think the book really emphasizes gratitude and joy, but more on a performance level. We all have aspects of our jobs that we don't really enjoy very much. We may love our jobs, but there's aspects of it, like maybe it's opening emails on Monday morning. For me, it was Sunday long runs. Fresh in my career, I would just get demolished by the guys I was running with. And it conditioned me to wake up on Sunday morning feeling fatigued already at the task ahead. And I remember just one day understanding that I was already waking up defeated, that I realized I got to change the story here. And so the next Sunday I made scones the night before, just the dough, so I could pop them in the oven and eat them fresh in the morning. I drank out of my favorite French press, wore my favorite outfit, read the comic section of the Los Angeles Times and only the comic section so I could keep my mood elevated. And I walked the dog briefly, and I got to practice already feeling better because I had put some intentional details to my morning in play to make it more enjoyable. And my run went so much better. I was still exhausted afterwards, but everything about it was better. My pace was better. I was more even paced, efficient, felt better at the end. I still took a 4-hour nap that day and woke up from that nap to read the rest of the paper. But everything shifted that day. And it really made me realize how much control we have over that part of our day, the time where we're like procrastinating because we don't like to do laundry or make that phone call or answer that email or see that relative, that you have so much control over it. And if you could just add some joy to those unenjoyable moments, it makes you more effective at doing it. And so if you can apply that to your job or your everyday life, it could really enhance you in big ways so that there are no bad days. That motto, no bad days. And it's how I was able to get no bad days in my life. And then making laundry more fun by putting some flowers from the garden in a vase next to the laundry machine so that when I'm folding the laundry, it was a more enjoyable experience. So monotonously making dinner when I'm tired, like let's put on some mariachi music while I'm making enchiladas, like just making fun and fanfare out of everyday processes to just make life something to celebrate each and every day. Like just not get caught up in a cycle of checking boxes each day. So I think that it was a really empowering journey, and I wanted other people to see it in full effect, which is why the storytelling part of it was important, not just giving someone a workbook on what to do.
Okay, so I heard you say that control over your circumstances is very important. Control over how you see things and how you think about things can change how you experience things. You know, for
But that
someone,
doesn't mean I'm successful all the time. I mean, I have towed in my first national cross country championship as a professional athlete. I was towing that starting line after 4 months of some of the best training in my life. And I could not believe how bold and strong true confidence feels when you're standing on the starting line. It was so empowering. And the gun fired and I got demolished that day. I delusionally thought that I was going to get on the US team by getting in the top 6. I was 30th place. And I was thought how delusional can I be to think that I could do this as a profession? And I was so upset about it. But my coach, Joe Vigil at the time, my greatest mentor, said, listen, I'm glad you're pissed off. It means you care a lot about what you're doing. You expected more and wanted more. Like, we got to get back home and get into training. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're on a path. This isn't an immediate gratification. This job is not immediate gratification. And I just loved how he gave me permission to feel disappointment without feeling like a failure. And so it really made me, that moment in particular, made me really rethink negative emotions, to not trying to I feel like in society and at the time, you try to brush off negative emotions, right? You just want to be positive all the time and brush the discomfort away. But it really made me embrace hard feelings and sit with them a while, because disappointment in the 20 years I had already been running meant that I failed. And it doesn't have to mean what the dictionary says it means. It needs to mean something to you. So define this emotion on your terms, to know that grief doesn't have to just mean loss and devastation. It could mean that you just loved so deeply, and that the depths with which you've loved is why you're grieving so heavily. So embrace the fact that you loved so big for so many years in such a bold way. Like, that's beautiful. Grief the intensity of the grief is not gonna keep a knife in your heart forever. And so there's just like a lot of these lessons that I learned through sport. And it's a lot how most of it is how negativity and discomfort can really be beautiful gateways into learning and discovering more about yourself and more about your strengths.
Okay, let's go on a run. Let's run the marathon.
Ouch. I'm not trained for this right now.
No, I want the mental aspect of it.
Yeah.
So when you get the first physical pain,
Mm-hmm.
how do you respond to that?
Yeah. I mean, it starts first with like, I guess my coach would call it emotional control, like being on the starting line. And while you feel the frequency and energy of every anxious person around you, to just think, this is no big deal. This is what I do every single day. Something as simple as putting one foot in front of the other. And we are going to think fluid stations, which is every 5K. I'm going to get my water bottle every 5K. I'm going to run those tangents so that I'm not running any longer than 26.2 miles. I want to run that blue line, so it's the shortest possible route. And I'm going to look at pace each mile. So very methodical about just flipping through those thoughts. Fluid, pace, and tangents. Fluid, pace, and tangents. Fluid, pace, and tangents. It's pretty mindless, which actually also allows you to get more into a flow state, of putting in effort, but how it can evolve into feeling effortless. But when it starts to hurt, it usually starts to hurt earlier than you thought it should, or people tell you it should. Like in the marathon, they say like the 20-mile mark is when it starts to get uncomfortable. But more often than not, it's 13 or 16 or 18-mile mark. And so really leaning into thoughts that support, like maybe it could be something like, this mile's hurting because it's a little uphill. So let's just get this mile in, like run the mile you're in, get through this mile, and hopefully the next mile will feel a little more comfortable. In the marathon, you can't ever think that the discomfort is the end of your race. The marathon like ebbs and flows in and out of discomfort. And so I feel like it becomes my job to make that discomfort go away as quickly as possible. And when I'm feeling like I'm in a comfortable flow, to make that last as long as possible. Sometimes it's getting super internal when it really gets ugly, when you feel like that wall is approaching and maybe you mismanaged your sugar intake. It's the exact opposite of that start line where you're like, this is no big deal. When you start to tell yourself at 20 miles, like, this is no big deal. As soon as I start saying it, then the timing is everything in that mindset. I think, no, this is a really big deal, because it's not about changing the world at this point. It's not about making the world a better place or whether this win is going to do something better, like make me contribute to the world in any better way. It becomes about my character. And I have worked way too hard to be gritty and resilient and perseverant and all those other qualities that I've worked on for so many years. And I say to myself, I'll be damned if this is the moment that brings that all down. Like, I've built this fortress of good, strong rocks for too many years for this one moment to be what takes me. And so I make it about character and make it really important in those final stages.
Well, let's talk about pace. Let's pretend that you have 3 or 4 miles in a row where your pace is not on par. How
like
do you
too slow?
Too slow. You're going too slow. And you pick it up the next mile and you're still too slow. And you pick it up again, and maybe that doesn't happen, but something where the input, the feedback, the data that you're getting is not reinforcing your effort.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that in the middle of the race?
Yeah, if that is the case, it might depend on where I am in the race. If it's in the last 10K, I would I guess not actually, but emotionally throw my watch to the side, right? Just like not focus on those metrics at all and make it about fighting to catch the person in front of me or fend off the people that are coming from behind, knowing that my pace might be a little slower than anticipated. And really making it not about the feedback, because sometimes our watch's feedback isn't accurate. So make it about effort and really going for it. So I think you have to not always rely on the metrics that we're being told. And you have to go off of heart, because if I'm not hitting my paces, it might be because it's 100-degree day and nobody else is hitting their paces. So it really doesn't have anything to do about time on a day like that. So I tend to keep things in check like that, because there's so many levels of a goal, and really we can't expect buildups or races to be perfect. And so I feel like paces are more of a suggestion, important if you're going after a personal best or need a Boston qualifying time. But there's always a reason to continue to fight and get the best out of yourself, regardless of that a goal of time being on the.
Everybody that's run, and you guys obviously deal with this stuff all the time, and that's being uncomfortable. What is your antidote for dealing with feeling uncomfortable?
Yeah. I tend to ask questions of my discomfort. Like, is this an emotional discomfort? Like, are my hamstrings screaming at me because I just got passed by someone? It's more of a response to being passed and like needing to find an excuse for it. Like, I really try to like dive deep into the psyche of what that discomfort is telling me. And because we're so complicated, like our reactions, our emotional reactions to circumstances really have physical complications, or implications. So I tend to just ask questions. And as I ask questions, the miles are going on. So I'm kind of like buying time, right? You're thinking it through. And I love that. I love that, just being cerebral, right? Like really just like over questioning, over analyzing. I might say like if my hamstrings are tight, like, well, at least my shoulders feel loose. So let's focus on my shoulders because they're going to carry me through. If my shoulders aren't feeling great either, then I'll try to find a body part to carry me. Like sometimes it's just my earlobes, like take me to that finish line, and tend not to be too intense about it also, right? Like you've got to find humor in the fact that you're making a choice to be out here and grind it out on a Sunday morning when all of your friends are back home having a boozy brunch together, and you're out here suffering on the streets and already have a dehydration headache, and you're not even at the finish line yet. Like you've got to find humor in your life choices when you're doing that. But also like if it's not working by thinking things through, if you really can't take the higher road, find a distraction. The spectators on the sidelines are so fantastic for their funny signs or the things that they're shouting out your name because it's on your bib number and they don't even know you. Like there's something pretty awesome about that. People showing up to encourage strangers to get through their races. And so really just trying to engage, passing a water station and saying thank you to the volunteers. So it's not about you. It's about these people who showed up who are even crazier. Like, well, I'm here trying to get to this finish line and I'm miserable, but look at these people out here dedicating their Sunday morning to passing out water to 50,000 people. Like, are they crazier or am I crazier? Like just trying to make light of what you're trying to accomplish. I think sometimes we take things too lightly and then sometimes things too seriously. So where's that balance and what does the moment need is what I try to find when I'm out there.
Okay. So you talked about that one race where you're extremely confident, and sometimes we're delusionally confident, and you have a daughter that is now competing in high school sports, running. How do you help her? Because sometimes it's easier to see it when you're helping someone else than when you're even doing it yourself. But there's confidence builders and boosters, and there's confidence killers. How would you describe those two different camps?
Yeah, wow. That's a hard one to unpack because I'm still trying to explore that, right? Like my daughter is 15, freshman in high school, and she skis and she's new to running, but a very good free ride skier. She has competed internationally. And I remember giving her advice, and I don't even remember what the piece of advice was going into one of her ski competitions. And she said, "You don't even ski. Why would I take advice from you?" I said, "You're right. I don't know anything about skiing, but I know a lot about competing." And she said, "Okay." And so we kind of had to like break down that teenage daughter to mother barrier for a second. But then in running, it is hard because I just try to be an observer and an encourager without being a competitor or to give advice. I let her coach give advice, whether I agree with it or not. Usually not, but just when she asks me a question, I say, what did your coach tell you to do? And she'll tell me, and I said, then just do that, even though it's not something that I would encourage or do myself. And then,
whoa. Why?
because I also know that believing in what you're doing is really important. Having that belief is really important in an athlete.
Give me an example of something.
Well, so my husband has been by my side my entire professional career, and my coach, he would only support what my coach was telling me to do on any given day. His support was more in the recovery of like stretching and massages every day, my husband. And so I really appreciated that, because I saw some of my teammates whose husbands had totally different ideas of what was going on at practice. And it got into the athlete's head 100% of the time, I'm not sure I should be doing this. My husband said that I should probably take today off. My husband said I should probably work out harder. My husband said, and I'm like, oh, wow, like I'm so glad I never had to second guess anything. Everyone's on the same page here. And I feel like for my daughter being in her very first year of running, that I just want to be supportive of the fact that when I asked her why she joined the group, it was because there was a cute boy on the team. And that might be her running story, just following where the cute boys are. When I saw that she started logging her progress on her phone, like typing where her personal bests were and why she thought she got those personal bests, I want her to unpack some of that stuff. If she's going to ask me advice on what she should do during summer training, I will ask her what scope does she want me? Does she want me to write her a program, or does she want me to just encourage her to get out the door a couple times a week? And so I don't want to step on coach's toes, but I also want to be supportive of how this is her story and how it's unfolding. And it might not have anything to do with wanting to be an Olympic runner. It could just be she wants conditioning for her ski season. It could be that she wants to chase cute boys. It could be because she likes the group, which is why she then went from cross country to also join the track team, because she loved how supportive the distance group was. So I want it to be about what she wants to get out of the sport. And I'll give her advice if it's not going to step on strategy that a coach might tell her or the workouts that a coach is giving her. But I want her to govern and steer the direction of her running, just because I want it to be enjoyable for her.
And by doing that, you eliminate conflict.
Yeah.
With the coaches. I would think the coaches might be a little sensitive to having an athlete whose mother won a medal in the Olympics in running, and wondering, what's your mother say?
Yeah.
And you not even knowing that your daughter's getting asked that question. And she goes, she says, do what you tell me to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want the coaches to feel insecure about me being around. I just want to be a supportive mom who shows up for cookies after the race. Like I've really tried hard to make sure that I'm showing up as a supportive mom, not as an Olympic athlete that's micromanaging and overly analyzing everything that's going on. Although there's a little bit of that churning in the back of my head. I just want to be the supportive mom in this group of runners. I remember there was one race we were in Truckee, California at a track meet. And I went up to the whole team after. It was like, that was amazing. You did so good. You did so well. You did so well. You did so well. And when we got in the car, my daughter was like, you encouraged me the same as everybody else. And I said, did you want me to treat you any differently? She's like, I ran the fastest split on the team. And I said, yeah, that was awesome. But your whole team did awesome in order for that to happen. If you want me to encourage you more, I will, but I also just don't want to overdo it. Like, what if I put you on my shoulders and cheer around on the infield? Would that be too embarrassing? And she's like, yeah, don't do that. I'm like, okay, so where's the middle? Like, tell me exactly what you want me to do after the race. You all ran well. 3 of you ran personal best. You included. 3 of you ran personal best. I'm just going to say great job to everybody.
Well, your daughter is very normal. She is pointing out that no matter what you do, you should have did something else.
We are flawed indeed. We are flawed indeed.
Yes. And I'm sure your daughter is amazing, but just the way it works. I mean, been through that space, and it's just it's a journey that's fun. It's interesting, and sometimes it's agonizing. It can be agonizing.
fascinating. Teenagers are fascinating in every sense of the word. To be driving the team on a 5-hour drive to an invitational and hearing the conversations, like, oh my gosh, they are like creatures that are changing and clumsy, and it's beautiful to watch because they themselves are becoming who they're going to be. It's like an experiment, really. Grand
It's like a
experiment.
big laboratory. I think high schools are laboratories.
Yeah.
Experiments going on every day. And people have different identities sometimes every day. That same person they were yesterday. They're trying to figure out who they are. So
True.
let's go practical. You're the coach, and there's a listener that has a dream, has a goal. They want to, they're in this place right now where there's a gap between where they're at and where they want to be. Give them some practical performance advice that's very general, that applies to everybody. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. My first thing is to be strategic, right? Be strategic on that growth. Like if you want to run 4 minutes for the mile, then you're going to have to run a little faster than a minute for each lap, right? So it's being strategic on what parameters to work on, and then get strategic outside. Because sometimes to be better at your craft, you just have to be better outside your craft, right? It's not about working harder or smarter, but sometimes working a little more joyfully to like manipulate your hormones and neural chemistry, that you are resting. Like you might want to run faster, and all it's going to take is sleeping an extra hour every night so that your cortisol levels go down and your human growth hormone is doing its work, repairing the damage in your body. It's not always about working harder. You just sometimes just have to work outside the parameters of your craft to really nurture it. Maybe you have to work on your interpersonal relationships and heal some relationships before anything else in your life works out. So I really feel like to live holistically is to eat well, sleep well, work hard, and rest hard. And to get all that under you without dismissing the fact that we are social beings and we really have to operate within a community of people. And so nurturing those relationships is so important and could be the catalyst for being your best. Just nurturing the relationships around you. It's why running clubs are so important. It's why teams are so important. It's why being in church is so important. You're just having that social time and that collaboration of thought and kindness and generosity that is so vital to our own thriving. So sometimes I feel like we get so singly focused on our goal that we lose sight of all the other things that need to happen in order for us to thrive as humans, like as a total being. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, is to be strategic on the development side, but then also make sure that you're doing all this ancillary life work, which is treating your body, nourishing your body well with foods, sleeping well so you're nourishing your body and mind, thinking positively, working on your mental health, your mental fitness, and really nurturing those relationships around you. So I think we have to take a whole body, a whole mind approach to really thriving, and not just be so narrowly driven on achieving, having $1 billion portfolio or whatever that might look like for someone, whatever their pie in the sky goal is in life. They need to take a whole body approach.
One thing you mentioned earlier was micro adjustments. How do people, because most people want to make major changes.
Yeah.
How have you learned to like leverage micro adjustments to improve and to shift and to make progress?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we do look for the ways to leap forward instead of just shuffle our way an inch forward. But really, if you can look at all those little things that need our attention, those 1% changes add up to a lot, especially when you compound those adjustments over time. And so it's really about paying attention, like paying attention to our thoughts, paying attention to our surroundings. Are we surrounded by people who are supporting our dreams and goals? And if not, if they're people we can let go of in our life, then that's a really hard decision to make. But if you don't let go of that, maybe there's some support you could bring in. You could look at where you're working. If your goal is to buy a new house, is to buy a 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom, 5-bath house, maybe you're not living and working in the right place to make that a reality. And so thinking about where you want to do that. So sometimes it's like a clean sweep, like stepping back and just looking at the big picture of who we are, because we get so focused on our routines, right? Our habits. And so to step back and look at little ways that we can adjust that. Sometimes it's cutting out an obligation. Like, do I really need to sit on 3 boards? Is this where I want my time to go as I still have a child in the house? You know, do I want to step back there and wait till she's out of the house and away at college to take on more of those responsibilities? So really looking at your whole life and how you want to focus your energy. And when you free up energy in one space, you end up having more energy to be able to pursue the things that you love and enjoy. So sometimes it's not about doing more, it's about doing less. And I think maybe in our culture, we get caught up on the pride of saying how busy we are instead of thinking like how focused we can be on doing the things that really matter in our lives.
I think the other thing I would add to that, and I'm sure you agree, is, a lot of people are into doing more than being. And sometimes when you expand your beingness, you can do more. And when you try to do more, you kind of hit limits, you hit ceilings.
Yeah.
But when you become more in alignment with what you want to do, it's easier to do it. So it's almost like the reverse. It's like the sleeping thing.
Yeah.
You're like, why would I sleep more? I need to work more. No, sleeping gives you more clarity, more ability to think, and maybe think at a higher level, think quicker, process better, so that you make better decisions while you're working. So It's like, I interviewed a lady that was on my podcast a couple years ago, and she talked about when you scale a very high mountain, you have to go back, you go up and adapt to, adjust to the altitude. Then you go back down. Then you go back up again, go up a little bit higher, but you're always going back. But in life, everybody just wants to keep going forward.
Yeah.
Then they trip. Or sometimes it's not so bad to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes when we go back, we have better insight on how to move forward, right? And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to get really intimidated by talking about mindfulness and presence. And so to just like dumb it down, like just start paying attention to where you're putting your energy and to what the outcome is, right? Because our habits or our routines get compounded over time. So if we're compounding that energy, like what are we really reinforcing? And I think it's important to just step back and pay attention and think about what you want to get out of that routine and habit that you have created or want to create.
One of my favorite words is metacognition. Just think about what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Can you even think about what you're thinking about?
Yeah.
People can't. It's like that is the way through sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Think about what you're thinking about.
Because most of our thoughts, I talked earlier where we have 75,000 thoughts. Most of them are fleeting. Most of them are absolutely fleeting. And we don't even like know that they're buzzing by. And so if you are paying attention or thinking about what you're thinking about, you could really realize whether those thoughts are working in your favor or against you.
Okay, Deena, you are running a marathon. And, I don't know why they had to do 26.2, but you're in that 0.2 phase at the end of the race. Describe for everyone how you kick, how you give it everything you got, how you go to a different zone to finish the race.
So the story of how it became 26.2 is very fun. So anybody who's interested in that should Google it. It has to do with the Queen of England. So that final push, I mean, sometimes you have the desire mentally and you don't have anything left physically. And sometimes you have something left physically, but you don't really have the mental fight in you anymore. And it's such a hard balance to get it perfect. And sometimes you have neither. You have neither the mental cognition or the physical ability. But I think anything worth all that time. That's what I think about. It's like, I just put in 5 months of training, and this is a 24/7 job that I am in. And I just have, I just have another 10 minutes of work to do. And then I get to stick my toes in the sand and have a drink with an umbrella in it. Um, that isn't much ask if you think about what's behind you. Like it's just this little more to go. So I try to, you just try to think about whatever's going to get you there, right? If the thought is like, you know what, just walk it in. I don't accept that. I think of like, what thoughts do I need to just grind out the last bit of energy? And I think I don't get it right sometimes. Sometimes I cross the finish line and I'm like, oh man, that was hard, but I still have energy. So I know I didn't get it right. Sometimes I cross the finish line and I black out, and it's not till hours later where I'm like, I think I gave it everything I had today. And I have to be fine with that outcome. We could beat ourselves up if the outcome is, if you didn't reach your goal and you still have energy, you're like, I didn't get it right. So it's just trying to unpack it in that way. But I love the final push of that race of like, it's like negotiating 101, right? You're just like trying to negotiate your way to that finish line. And I love the negotiation process. I love the angel devil squabble on my shoulder when I'm running and it's getting really challenging. Like, kind of think of these characters on my shoulder, and I'm just trying to shut the devil up and like really embolden the angel on this side to like get bigger, grow her wings bigger. And so I think of it as that might be a little too revealing about what a weird space my head is in when I'm out there in mid struggle. But I just try to find whatever story is going to get me to that finish line, really gritting my teeth and getting the best out of myself mentally and physically.
I love the word negotiation.
Yeah.
In that context. I really
Yeah.
do. Because it really is something where it's negotiable. It's not like every time you're going to give it everything you got. Sometimes you're going to hold back because you don't want to go into that unknown where there's going to be more pain. You're already in pain. You don't want to go farther in pain. So you stop exerting as much energy, hoping that you don't have as much pain. The last thing I'll say about that is you time travel during that time, because sometimes you time travel to the past. Like, all the time and energy and effort I've put into this race is coming down to this last couple 100 yards. And sometimes you time travel to the future. It's like, holy smokes, I'm in second. I could be first, or I could finish in the top 10, or whatever it is. Or I could look like a bozo if I don't turn it on. Or you got people breathing down your throat that you're trying to hold off, and you use them in your negotiation to motivate yourself to give more.
Yeah. You mentioned pain, and I'm not really sure my relationship with pain. I'm not sure if I've gotten desensitized to it. I more think I respect it, in that I'm not afraid of discomfort or even outright pain. I'm not afraid of it. I trust it. And I trust that if I spend a little more time in my head up here while I'm in agony, that there's going to be a gift in there somewhere. So I think maybe it's not a desensitization. I think it's more of a desire to welcome the discomfort and learn from it, as opposed to being I mean, it might be in our DNA to run away from pain or to stop the pain for our species, right? For our species to be able to survive and go on and pass on our DNA. But I've learned to learn from it as opposed to be scared of it.
That's awesome. Well, there you have it. Running to victory, thinking your way to victory. Deena Kastor, thank you so much for being on Pro Mindset today.
Craig, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very smart, very, you think about what you think about.
Yeah.
A lot.
Metacognition.
Metacognition. So wish you nothing but the best in your marriage and with your daughter and your business. And thank you again for being on Pro Mindset.
So grateful. Thank you.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.